So let's discuss interviewing mistakes I've made and interviewing tips so you can get your dream job. Let's kick it off with mistakes I've made so you can laugh at me and not with me. Okay. So the biggest mistake I made was I went to an interview with Microsoft in 1994 when I was at McGill University. I was in the computer science department and I had the interview there. I was so excited. And I showed up early and then the interview was supposed to start. And I looked at my watch and the interviewer was late. And I had my best suit on. It was a really good suit, double-breasted at the time, a little silly, I know. And what happened was a lady walked in and I thought she was the garbage lady. Her clothes, her shirt was untucked and everything. And so I nicely picked up the garbage and I said, la poubelle, which is French for garbage. And she looked at me and she said, actually, I'm from Microsoft and I'll be interviewing you today. So I didn't get that job. So when it comes to clothing, what you have to do and what to wear at an interview, it's pretty simple. You just go to the LinkedIn profile of the people you're going to be meeting with, or go to the website and go to About to see the attire. It's important to make a good first impression, unlike me. Another mistake that I made was I went to a lot of interviews and I would jump right into business. I would try to sell myself and oversell myself as well. And so what happened was I went on a long string of a gazillion interviews without getting a job. And I realized that business is about relationships first and product knowledge second. And so you have to bond with the interviewer first. You know, you talk about the weather or the news, etc. And also what you can do is you go to the Twitter profile of the person you're going to be interviewing with and you see who they follow. And if they follow, I don't know, baseball teams, you can talk about baseball. If they talk about movies, you can talk about movies, that sort of thing. Just bond with them. And I was so frustrated because I couldn't get a job. And so eventually I went to an interview and I told myself right before it starts, I just don't care if I get this job. And when I was at that interview, I remember what I did was I just kind of sat back and it was just me. And I got that job. And the next interview I have with another company, I was just myself. I got that job as well. You got to tell yourself you just don't care right before it starts. And I'm not saying be reckless or disingenuous at all, but just be you. You do you. Just be yourself. Just be yourself. Now, another thing I want to talk about with respect to interviews is you have to have structure in your logic. Okay, and there are a bunch of crutches that I teach my students about in terms of frameworks when you're interviewing. For example, you've got the SWOT analysis, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so if somebody asked you a case study related question or a question about business in general in an interview, in order to buy time and add structure to your logic, you can answer like this. Let me explain this using the SWOT analysis. I'll kick it off with the strengths. The strengths of this business are blah, blah, blah. Moving on to the weaknesses. The weaknesses are blah, blah, blah. I'm buying time. In terms of the opportunities are blah, blah, blah. And lastly, the threats. The biggest threats are yada, yada, yada. And the bottom line is this. And so in addition to using the SWOT analysis framework, I provide you with a bunch of transition words as well. And transition words can really help you think and buy time. And it's why a lot of times teachers in class or people that are doing a presentation in front of thousands of people, they'll repeat the question so they can buy time. So what are the best transition words? You can use moving on to in terms of the bottom line is. Another thing I learned is that you have to set up Google Alerts before your interview. You just do a search on Google Alerts and you enter in the name of the company you're going to be interviewing with a couple days before the interview. And you'll get automatic email alerts if there's an important news development that comes up about that company. So that the morning of your interview, as you walk into the interview, you can get the alerts right here. So you're very, very well prepared. The last thing I'll say is rambling. I rambled before in interviews. You got to keep your answers short and concise. And if you don't know the answer, you simply say, I don't know, but I'll find out. And then later on that day, you send a thank you email with the contents as follows. Joanne, for example. I enjoyed our meeting today. Thank you very much for your time, period. In terms of your question about X, I did some research and here are my humble thoughts. Thanks again, Chris.